Greetings, Quester. The Meddlesome Meeples present Tome Talk with Matt and Richard.
Welcome to Tome Talk, and today Matt is going to talk about Aztec Century by Christopher Evans.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's a book that I've been waiting a long time to read. This is one I've literally only just finished reading about an hour or so before the start recording. No, I hadn't read it before.
Oh.
I'd started reading it. This was one of the reasons why I'd been so excited to get my hands on a copy of this, because when I was younger, my mum used to do cleaning work, and she used to clean in a library in the evenings, but she had to usually take me with her because there was no one else to look after me. So, and the library staff knew this, and they were quite happy for it as long as I didn't go around to certain parts of the library. So I just used to sit in the library for a couple of hours and read. And I remember one time I finished a book and picked up a book with about 5-10 minutes left to go and started reading it. And I was really excited by this book because, I mean, I was about 9 years old, I think, at the time, but I was hugely interested in Aztecs and the Aztec Empire. And I picked up this book, and it was an alternate history novel where the premise of the story, although it was set in more modern times, was that when Hernando Cortés went to Tenochtitlan, he actually sided with the Aztecs.
Right.
And then he helped the Aztecs repel different waves of conquistadors, and the Aztecs became a world power. And I remember going back to the library during opening hours to try and get the book out so I could take it home and read it. But at the time, there was an age restriction on the book, so I couldn't hire it. And I thought, oh well, when I'm old enough, I'm definitely going to have to go back and get that book.
Right. So this
By
is
which point, I'd forgotten what the book was, what it was called, who wrote it. I just had this idea in my head, so I was trying to figure it out what the book was.
It says at the bottom, written and chained by the Aztec Empire. Maybe that's all you knew about it.
That was pretty much all I knew about
do it from the tagline. Because on the front, because I was looking at this, because you were reading it a bit last week, weren't you, as well? It's got kind of London on the front. It's quite recognisable because you see Big Ben.
Yeah.
But there's like an Aztec pyramid in there, and
a glider, Aztec glider.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
And it looks incredible, very futuristic. But as I say, it took me ages to try and track this down. I only found it because someone gave me the title of it, and that came about because one of the groups I'm in on Facebook, which is Board Gaming and Trading and Chat UK, there was a discussion in there about what books people like to read, and I made a comment on there that I was after this book, which was about an alternate history Aztec Empire, and someone says, oh, that sounds like Aztec Century by Christopher Evans. So I thought, yeah, I've got to. So I went out and bought it that same day, and finally got around to reading it, and I was quite excited even by some of the blurb on the back. Ian M. Banks, who's one of your favourite authors, he said about this that it's intelligent, finely written, and towards the end absolutely nail-biting.
Alright, so you could actually look forward to the end then.
Yeah. So I plunged into reading it, and I have to admit it wasn't as good as I remembered it being as a kid when I started.
Right.
The reason being, I'd seemed to remember. Well, I'd only read the very first bit of it, which talked about the Aztec Empire conquering the UK. And there's only a very short bit about that, and that's all I really remembered.
And then you just imagine the rest of it for years.
I just imagine, the rest of it being about the conquest and about the empire, and it being sort of like a grand geopolitical book with military overtones. And actually, it's not quite like that. The book is full of, the conquest of the Aztecs, the political intrigue that's going on. At its heart, there is a romance between Princess Catherine, one of the part of the royal family, and Esteban, who is the heir who becomes the heir to the throne. He's not at the start of the book. Who is installed as the governor of Britain.
Well, that would have annoyed you.
That annoyed me. That would have annoyed me when I was 9 if I'd got to that bit, and it annoyed me now because I'm not really a fan of romance novels. That said, I really enjoyed the book, particularly as Banks said towards the end.
Right,
the last 80 or 90 pages, I literally couldn't put the book down. I just carried on reading, and just to give you an idea, it starts off with certain members of the royal family having escaped London. The king's been captured, as has the prince. But there's two of the princesses and a baby escape, along with some of their retinue. And they're hiding in a place in Wales, and they're there for a couple of years before they're finally found. Oh, this is very early on in the book, so it's no spoilers, and it's in fact referenced on the back of the book as well. And they're then brought back to London. They become part of like the new court. One of them in particular, the main character, Princess Catherine, very resistant to the Aztecs, wanting to try and help her people. Also wanting to not have anything to do with the new establishment, and having like an inner struggle between herself not wanting to almost condone or give legitimacy to the dominant Aztecs by cooperating with them, but at the same time struggling internally because she knows that the only way that she can do anything to help her people is to work with them to some extent. Like at one point she goes on a tour to try and find out what people need, whether it's medical supplies, food, etc., and then makes recommendations which are then acted on by the Aztecs. And it's quite an interesting view into the mind of someone who's in that position where she feels like she should be fighting back, but she knows that that's going to be futile, and the only thing that she can do as a captive is to try and do what she can to help her people. So that is interesting in itself. As I say, this is an alternate history sci-fi, so it's quite interesting because it's describing places like parts of London which at the same time are very familiar if you've been there, but then with like really strange differences because of the Aztec presence. So
when did they conquer it then?
It's set, I would say, in the 90s.
And they've only just been conquered.
And they've only just been conquered.
Right. Okay.
But there've been struggles against the Aztecs for years before that. But it's only recently that they attacked and conquered Britain.
Right. Okay.
And it has, as a result, very quickly after that conquest, there are things there like even as you're walking down the streets, the kind of stores that are around are selling Aztec goods. Things are slowly being altered. A lot of the films and culture reflect Aztec culture as opposed to British culture, and it's quite fascinating to see that kind of a what if society.
Yeah,
it's got, I say, there's futuristic technologies and their futuristic weapons, and I did feel that a lot of the twists as I was reading through were predictable to me until I got towards the end.
Right. Okay.
The actual ending of the book was very well done. I really enjoyed the ending of the book, and I didn't see those particular twists coming. And I would say, as Banks said, that when you get to the end, I didn't want to put it down. I just wanted to keep reading it.
Right.
That one of the things that I have to say in this, Princess Catherine, who's the main character, I really didn't like her.
No.
I found it hard to root for her in a way because there was an arrogance to her nature, which I suppose is going to come from, that privileged royal background that even being in exile didn't diminish.
Right.
And there were times when she was doing things when I was thinking, that's just stupid.
Right.
And the way her views on certain characters in the book just seemed completely out of whack to me, out of line. Even so, I still managed to enjoy it, even though it was being told from her eyes. And because it was from that position, you were able to, as I say, to see like the internecine struggles between the various characters representing the Aztec Empire. And overall, this touches on quite, as I say, a number of subjects. There's warfare in there. There's the historical aspect to it that's interesting. The politics in it are interesting, and the ending is brilliant. And it's one of the things that I've often wondered myself, what would have happened had Cortés gone over to the Aztecs, because the Aztec Empire had huge amount of wealth and resources.
They weren't very together though, were they?
No.
They didn't really have much going for them.
Well, this is it. That's why I always thought, what if Cortés had worked with them?
I thought he did. Just ruled them a bit.
Well, he kind of pretended to be a god for a while.
Yeah.
And then they realised that he wasn't and chucked him out. And then there was a long, bitter fight, which he largely won because of horses and his advanced weaponry, and he made an alliance, didn't he, with the various tribes that.
Yeah.
But in this is different. This he repels. He helps the Aztecs repel other conquistadors. And it's quite interesting. I mean, some of the history of it is only touched on.
Yeah.
So, for example, Napoleon, Wellington, and Andrew Jackson together stopped the Aztec encroachment in the north.
Right.
In this, and there's just certain little historical aspects of it that's really interesting. But as I say, the whole history of the Aztec Empire, the human sacrifice side to their religion.
I was going to ask if there was that still.
Well, in this, the Aztecs have supposedly embraced Catholicism.
Right.
But there's lots of
Cortés's
secrets and rumours about, certain rituals and practices of them still honouring the old gods and still performing human sacrifices.
There's still some druids,
but they are denying it.
Alright, yeah.
But you will find an answer in the book.
Okay.
And that's, I don't want to say too much, obviously, but there is some really interesting things in this book. And it takes place across different settings. As I say, there's a lot set in the UK, there's a lot set in Tenochtitlan, there's sections of it that are set in Russia. So it's quite a broad scope of this, all told from the one character's perspective, Princess Catherine. But as I started to, I was kind of on a real journey with this because I didn't think that I could possibly not like the book, and then I started to read it. I started to think I might be wrong.
Yeah, I remember you saying that it wasn't as good as you remembered, but you were still quite near the beginning at that point.
Yeah, and as I say, in the end, this is a book that I definitely enjoyed.
Okay.
And the ending itself was very good.
Good. So you didn't just get through it to say, don't get this book. You can say it is interesting, and twist at the end.
I think
that was the main thing that I got from what you said.
Yeah, it was very good at the end. I would say as well that Christopher Evans, who's the writer, he is Welsh, and I think that he did draw upon certain aspects of that when he was writing the book. I mean, there was a character in there who is Welsh. When the royal family are hiding out, they're hiding out in a place in Wales, and the story does come back to that later.
Right.
In a way that you might find quite interesting when you actually get around to reading the book. But it does use his hometown as well in the story. So his own personality does come through in that regard. But yeah, I think this is a book that, particularly if you like alternate history, Harry Turtle, those sort of books, then Aztec Century by Christopher Evans is definitely going to be one to check out. But it's one that you might have to make yourself stick with to get the brilliant end. Yeah, okay then. So if you are a bit put off at the beginning, just remember that Matt was as well. Yeah. Right, so that's Tome Talk for this week, and next week I'll have a book to talk about. Do you know what that's going to be? No. Well, we'll see what Richard's been reading in a couple of weeks.
So Matthew thought that was good. What are your thoughts? Let us know.
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.